I can still smell the smoke. Even now, 3 years later, when I close my eyes at night, I smell it. That acrid, suffocating smell woke me from sleep and told me everything I had built was being taken from me. I remember stumbling out of bed, my lungs already burning, my eyes streaming with tears that had nothing to do with emotion and everything to do with the toxic air filling my bedroom. I remember screaming for my husband Thomas and our daughter Lily. I remember the heat pressing against my skin like a living thing, hungry and merciless. I remember thinking that this was how I was going to die, in the house I had designed with my own hands, surrounded by everything I loved. We survived. All three of us made it out through the back door just before the ceiling in the hallway collapsed. We stood on our lawn in our pajamas and watched our dream home burn to the ground while fire trucks screamed down our quiet street. Our neighbors came out to stare. Some of them offered blankets and water. Some of them just watched with that particular expression people get when they witness something terrible happening to someone else. A mixture of horror and relief that it was not them. But one neighbor was not there. Danielle Porter, my best friend since university, my next-door neighbor for the past 8 years, the woman who had stood beside me when I buried my father and held my hand when Lily was born, was nowhere to be seen. Her house was dark, her car was in the driveway, but she never came outside. At the time, I did not think anything of it. I was in shock. I was watching my life turn to ash. I was not cataloging who was present and who was absent. That came later. That came when the fire investigators started asking questions. That came when the police started looking at evidence. That came when the finger of blame slowly, inexorably pointed toward the woman I had trusted more than anyone except my husband. But this story is not simple. Nothing about what happened is simple. Because the truth I eventually uncovered was far worse than a friend's betrayal. It was a betrayal from within my own blood. It was a choice I never should have had to make. And it is a wound that will never fully heal. I need to go back to the beginning. I need to tell you how Danielle and I became friends, how we built our homes, how the jealousy grew between us like a cancer neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I need to tell you about my brother Marcus and the secrets he kept hidden. I need to tell you everything, because only then will you understand why I did what I did at the end. Only then will you understand the impossible choice I faced. Danielle and I met during our first year at university in Manchester. She was studying interior design. I was studying architecture. We were assigned to collaborate on a project, and from the first moment we started working together, something clicked. She had an eye for beauty that I lacked. I had a structural mind that she needed. Together we created something neither of us could have managed alone. It was the beginning of a partnership that would define both our lives. We became inseparable. We shared a flat in our second year. We studied together, partied together, cried together when relationships ended, and celebrated together when new ones began. When I met Thomas at a pub during our final year, Danielle was the first person I told. When she met Craig at a work event 2 years after graduation, I was her maid of honor at their wedding. Our lives ran parallel, intertwined, like two vines growing up the same wall. The idea to build our dream home side by side came during a holiday we took together in the Cotswolds. Our husbands were walking ahead, and Danielle and I were trailing behind, talking about the future the way you do when you have had a few glasses of wine, and the world seems full of possibility. We were both pregnant at the time, me with Lily and Danielle with her son Oliver. We were talking about where we wanted to raise our children, what kind of lives we wanted to build. I said something about wanting a house I had designed myself, something that felt like an extension of who I was. Danielle said she wanted to live somewhere beautiful, somewhere that looked like the homes she saw in magazines. And then, almost as a joke, I said we should buy plots next to each other and build our dream homes side by side. Our children could grow up together. We could be neighbors forever. Danielle loved the idea. She grabbed my arm and made me promise we would actually do it. And because I loved her, because I trusted her completely, because I could not imagine my life without her in it, I promised. It took 5 years to make that dream a reality. We searched for the perfect location, finally finding 2 adjacent plots in a beautiful area outside of Leeds. The land was expensive, but between our savings and our mortgages, we could just about afford it. Thomas, who worked as a contractor, agreed to oversee the construction of both homes at a reduced cost. It was a family affair, a labor of love, a testament to our friendship. I designed both houses. Mine was practical and warm, with large windows and an open floor plan that would let light flood every room. Danielle's was more ornate, with decorative elements and luxurious finishes that she chose herself. I thought at the time that we had balanced our different tastes perfectly. I thought we had created something we could both be proud of. Looking back now, I can see the first seeds of resentment being planted during those construction months. Danielle would come to the building site and look at my house with an expression I did not recognize. She would make comments that seemed like compliments but had edges to them. "Your house is so spacious," she would say. "Ours feels almost cramped in comparison." Or, "Thomas is doing such beautiful work on your place. I wish Craig had useful skills like that." I dismissed these comments at the time. I told myself she was just stressed about the cost, worried about whether she had made the right choices. I never imagined that she was comparing our lives and finding her own lacking. I never imagined that every time she looked at my house, she saw evidence of an unfairness she could not forgive. We moved in on the same weekend, in the summer, when Lily and Oliver were 5 years old. I remember the chaos of moving boxes and the excitement of finally being in our new homes. I remember Danielle and me standing on the property line between our houses, glasses of champagne in hand, toasting to our friendship and our future. I remember thinking that this was the beginning of the best chapter of our lives. For a few years, it was. Lily and Oliver became best friends, just like we had hoped. They ran between our houses constantly, treating both homes as their own. We had barbecues in the summer and holiday parties in the winter. Our families ate dinner together at least twice a week. Thomas and Craig became friends, bonding over shared projects and weekend football. It was everything I had imagined and more. But beneath the surface, things were changing. I did not see it at first, but looking back, the signs were everywhere. Thomas's contracting business was thriving. He had built a reputation for quality work, and referrals kept coming in. We were comfortable financially, able to take holidays and save for Lily's future. Danielle and Craig were not doing as well. Craig had been passed over for promotion multiple times at his accounting firm. Danielle's interior design business had never quite taken off the way she had hoped. They were struggling with their mortgage, with their bills, with the life they had expected to have. I tried to help where I could. I recommended Danielle for design jobs. Thomas gave Craig advice about asking for a raise. We included them in our holidays, paying more than our share of the costs. I thought I was being a good friend. I thought I was showing her that our success was her success, that we were still in this together. But Danielle did not see it that way. She saw every gesture of help as a reminder of how far behind she was falling. She saw every improvement we made to our house as evidence that we were pulling ahead. She looked at my life and saw everything she wanted but did not have. The comments became sharper. The visits became less frequent. Oliver and Lily still played together, but Danielle started making excuses for why she could not come over. She was busy. She was tired. She had projects to finish. When I suggested plans, she would agree and then cancel at the last minute. When I asked if something was wrong, she would smile and say everything was fine. I knew it was not fine. I knew something had shifted between us, but I did not push. I told myself that friendships go through phases, that she would come back to me when she was ready. I gave her space and waited for things to return to normal. They never did. The night of the fire, I had been asleep for about 3 hours. Thomas was beside me, snoring gently the way he always did. Lily was in her room down the hall. I do not know what woke me first, the smell or the sound. But I remember opening my eyes and seeing an orange glow flickering under our bedroom door. I remember the heat, already intense, already terrifying. I remember the smoke alarm finally starting to scream, too late to be useful. The next few minutes are a blur of panic and adrenaline. Thomas grabbed Lily from her room. I tried to reach my phone, but the smoke was too thick. We went down the back stairs and out through the kitchen door just as glass started exploding somewhere above us. We ran across the garden in bare feet, and when we turned around, our beautiful home was engulfed in flames. I called the emergency services from a neighbor's phone. The fire brigade arrived within 12 minutes, but by then there was nothing left to save. They contained the blaze to prevent it spreading to Danielle's house next door, but our home was gone. Everything inside was gone. Photographs of Lily as a baby, my grandmother's jewelry, the drawings I had made of this very house, the ones I had framed and hung in the entryway. All of it ash. We stayed with Thomas's parents for the first few weeks. Insurance adjusters came and went. Investigators examined the ruins. Police asked questions. I was too numb to process most of it. I just wanted to understand what had happened. I wanted someone to tell me why my life had been destroyed. The fire investigators' report came back 3 weeks later. The fire had been deliberately set. Accelerant had been poured around the exterior of the house. The point of origin was near the back door, the door we had used to escape. If the fire had been set on the other side of the house, we might not have made it out. The police began treating it as arson. They started interviewing everyone who knew us. They started looking for suspects. And they found one. 3 witnesses reported seeing Danielle outside her house around 2 in the morning, roughly an hour before the fire was reported. A security camera from a house down the street had captured a figure walking toward our property from the direction of Danielle's house at 1:45. Traces of the accelerant used were found on gardening gloves in Danielle's shed. And most damning of all, her phone records showed that she had searched for information about house fires and insurance fraud in the weeks leading up to that night. When the police arrested Danielle Porter and charged her with arson, I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. My best friend, the woman who had stood beside me for nearly 20 years, the woman whose son had grown up with my daughter, she had tried to kill us. I could not believe it. I did not want to believe it. But the evidence seemed overwhelming. The police were confident. The prosecutor was confident. Everyone told me that justice would be served, that Danielle would pay for what she had done. Danielle denied everything. She said she had been asleep that night, that she had not left her house, that she had no idea how those gloves had gotten in her shed, or why she had searched those things online. She said she would never hurt me, that she loved me, that someone was framing her. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did believe her, but the evidence was so strong. The witnesses, the camera footage, the accelerant. How could all of that be wrong? Thomas was convinced of her guilt. He said Danielle had always been jealous of us. He said he had noticed the way she looked at our house, the bitterness in her voice when she talked about our success. He said it all made sense now, that she had finally snapped, that her resentment had boiled over into violence. He wanted her prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. He wanted her to spend decades in prison for what she had done. I was torn. I was devastated. I did not know what to believe. The trial was scheduled to begin 8 months after the fire. In the meantime, Danielle was released on bail but ordered to stay away from us. Oliver went to live with Craig's parents. The house next door, the house that was supposed to be part of our shared dream, sat empty and silent. Every time I looked at it, I felt sick. During those 8 months, something happened that changed everything. Something that revealed a truth I was not prepared to face. It started with my brother Marcus. Marcus was 4 years older than me. We had never been close. He had always been difficult, always getting into trouble, always making choices that hurt the people around him. He had borrowed money from our parents that he never repaid. He had failed at multiple businesses. He had a gambling problem that he refused to acknowledge. When our father died 5 years ago, Marcus had contested the will, trying to get a larger share of the inheritance. It had caused a rift in our family that had never fully healed. Despite all of this, I had tried to maintain a relationship with him. He was my brother. Blood was supposed to mean something. So when he called me 6 months after the fire and said he wanted to see me, I agreed. We met at a coffee shop near my temporary apartment. Marcus looked terrible. He had lost weight, and his eyes had a desperate quality I had not seen before. He made small talk for a few minutes, asking about Lily, about how I was coping with losing the house. Then he got to the real reason for the meeting. He needed money. Again. He had gotten himself into debt with some people he should not have been involved with. He owed them a lot. If he did not pay soon, things would get bad for him. He knew I had received the insurance payout for the house. He knew I was planning to rebuild. He wanted me to give him £100,000. I refused. I told him I could not afford to give him that kind of money. I told him I needed every penny to rebuild our lives. I told him he needed to take responsibility for his own choices instead of always coming to me or our parents for rescue. Marcus got angry. He said I had always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. He said I had gotten everything handed to me while he had to struggle for scraps. He said it was not fair that I had this beautiful life while his was falling apart. I started to respond, to defend myself, but then I stopped. Something about the way he was talking was bothering me. He kept referring to my beautiful life in the past tense. He kept talking about what I had, as if it was already gone. And there was something in his eyes, something that looked almost like satisfaction when he mentioned the fire. A cold feeling started to spread through my chest. I asked Marcus where he had been the night of the fire. His expression flickered just for a moment before he regained control. He said he had been at home. He said he had heard about the fire the next morning like everyone else. He asked why I was asking. I told him I was just wondering. I changed the subject back to his money problems. But inside, my mind was racing. I thought about the timeline. I thought about the witnesses who had seen a figure near our house. I thought about the accelerant and the gloves and the phone searches. I thought about how all of that evidence pointed to Danielle, but how easily it could have been planted by someone who wanted it to point there. I thought about how much Marcus resented me. I thought about how desperate he was for money. I thought about the insurance payout that I had received, the payout that I might have shared with him if he had asked nicely instead of demanding. And I thought about Danielle, facing trial for a crime she might not have committed, her life destroyed by evidence that might have been manufactured. I left the coffee shop feeling like I was going to be sick. I drove to a park and sat in my car for 2 hours, just thinking. I did not want to believe that my own brother could have done this. I did not want to believe that he would have tried to kill me and my family for money. But the more I thought about it, the more I could not dismiss the possibility. I needed to know the truth. I needed to investigate. Over the next 2 months, I became obsessed with uncovering what had really happened. I hired a private investigator without telling Thomas. I went back through every piece of evidence that had been presented against Danielle. I looked for holes, for inconsistencies, for anything that did not add up. The private investigator found things the police had missed. The security camera footage that had captured the figure walking toward our house was grainy and unclear. The police had assumed it was Danielle because she was the obvious suspect. But when the investigator had the footage enhanced, the figure's gait and body shape did not match Danielle. It did, however, match Marcus. The gardening gloves with the accelerant traces had been found in Danielle's unlocked shed, but our investigator discovered that Marcus had visited us 3 weeks before the fire, claiming to help with some yard work. He would have had access to that shed. He would have known exactly where to plant evidence. The phone searches about house fires and insurance fraud had been traced to Danielle's phone, but our investigator found evidence that someone had accessed her phone remotely around the time those searches were made. Someone with moderate technical skills could have installed software that allowed them to control her phone from a distance. Most damning of all, the investigator uncovered financial records showing that Marcus had been receiving payments from an unknown source in the months following the fire. The amounts were irregular and carefully laundered, but they added up to roughly £70,000. The source of the payments was eventually traced to Craig Porter, Danielle's husband. When I confronted Craig, he broke down and told me everything. Craig had been having an affair for 2 years, not with another woman, but with gambling, the same addiction that plagued Marcus. The two of them had met at an underground poker game and had become friends of a sort. Craig had lost everything. He was in debt. He was desperate. And Marcus had offered him a solution. Marcus knew about the insurance policy on our house. He knew that if something happened to our home, I would receive a significant payout. He also knew that I would likely share some of that money with family if they needed help, the way I had always done. He proposed a plan to Craig. They would burn down my house, frame Danielle for the crime, and split the proceeds. Craig would be free of his gambling debts. Marcus would have money to pay off his own creditors. And Danielle, who Craig resented for constantly comparing him unfavorably to Thomas, would take the fall. It was monstrous. It was evil. And I could barely comprehend that my own brother had conceived of it. Craig claimed he had not known that we would be inside the house when Marcus set the fire. He claimed Marcus had promised to wait until we were away on one of our holidays. He claimed he had been horrified when he learned that we had nearly died, but he had gone along with the cover-up because he was terrified of what Marcus would do if he talked. I recorded Craig's confession on my phone. Then I went to the police. The investigation that followed was brutal. Marcus was arrested at his apartment and charged with arson, attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Craig was arrested and charged with conspiracy and accessory after the fact. The case against Danielle was dropped, and she was released with the acknowledgement that she had been wrongfully accused, but nothing about this felt like victory. When Thomas learned that my own brother had tried to kill us, he was furious, not just at Marcus, but at me. He felt I should have seen it coming. He felt I should have cut Marcus out of our lives years ago. He blamed me for keeping a relationship with someone so toxic, for letting him know enough about our lives to plan such a crime. I could not defend myself, because part of me agreed with him. I had made excuses for Marcus for years. I had given him chance after chance. I had ignored the warning signs because I did not want to believe my own blood could be capable of such evil. And that willful blindness had nearly cost my family everything. Thomas and I went to counseling. We are still together, but something between us has changed. There is a distance now that was not there before, a guardedness, He looks at me sometimes like he is not quite sure he can trust my judgment, and I cannot blame him for that. Lily was affected too. She had loved her Uncle Marcus, or the version of him he had presented to her. Learning what he had done shattered something in her. She became withdrawn and anxious. She had nightmares about the fire. We got her into therapy, and she is doing better now, but I know she will carry scars from this for the rest of her life. And then there was Danielle. When she was released, I expected her to be relieved. I expected her to be grateful that the truth had come out. I expected us to rebuild our friendship, stronger than before, bonded by the ordeal we had both survived. I was wrong. Danielle did not want to see me. She did not want to talk to me. When I tried to reach out, she did not respond. When I went to her house, she would not answer the door. Through her lawyer, she sent me a message saying that she needed time and space, that what had happened had damaged something in her that she did not know how to repair. I was devastated. I tried to understand. She had spent months believing that I thought she was capable of trying to kill me. She had been arrested, charged, publicly humiliated, separated from her son. Even though she was ultimately exonerated, the trauma of what she had been through was real. But I had been a victim too. I had lost my home. I had almost lost my life. I had uncovered the truth that set her free. Why was she punishing me for something my brother had done? It took me a long time to understand the answer to that question. Danielle had spent months in a cell or under house arrest, replaying our entire friendship in her mind. She had been forced to examine every interaction, every comment, every moment of jealousy she had felt but never expressed, and she had realized something about herself that she could not unrealize. She had been jealous of me, deeply, corrosively jealous. She had resented my success, my happy marriage, my comfortable life. She had looked at my house and felt anger that it was bigger and nicer than hers. She had looked at my husband and wished Craig could be more like him. She had looked at my life and felt cheated by comparison. When she was accused of setting the fire, part of her had understood why people believed it, because she knew that if circumstances had been different, if she had been a little less principled, if her resentment had been a little stronger, she might have been capable of it. The accusation had held up a mirror to her darkest impulses, and she had not liked what she saw. She could not face me because she could not face the version of herself that our friendship had created. She could not look at me without remembering the jealousy she had felt, and she could not forgive herself for those feelings, even though she had never acted on them. I learned all of this from Oliver, who stayed in touch with Lily despite everything. He told my daughter that his mother cried about me often. He told her that Danielle missed me but felt too ashamed to reach out. He told her that his mother had said our friendship was the best thing in her life, and that losing it was worse than anything that had happened during the trial. I wrote Danielle a letter. I told her that I did not blame her for any of it. I told her that jealousy was human, that I had felt it too at times, that it did not make her a bad person. I told her that I missed her, that I wanted her back in my life, that I would wait as long as it took for her to be ready. She never responded. The trial of Marcus and Craig took place 18 months after the fire. I testified against my own brother. I sat on the witness stand and looked him in the eyes and told the jury what he had done. He showed no remorse. He smirked at me when the prosecutor was not looking. He acted like the whole thing was a game he had lost but could have won if things had gone slightly differently. Marcus was convicted of all charges and sentenced to 22 years in prison. Craig received 12 years for his role in the conspiracy. The judge called it one of the most callous and calculated acts of betrayal he had ever seen in his courtroom. When the sentences were read, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no closure, no sense that justice had been served. I had wanted the truth and I had gotten it, but the truth had cost me everything. Our house was never rebuilt. Thomas and I could not bear to live on that land again, next to a house where our shattered friendship would be visible every day. We sold both properties and used the money to buy a smaller place in a different town. A fresh start, we told ourselves. A chance to heal, but you do not really start fresh. You carry your past with you wherever you go. Every morning when I wake up, I think about what my brother did. Every time I see a close friendship between two women, I think about Danielle and what we lost. Every time I smell smoke, even from a barbecue or a bonfire, I am back in that hallway, choking on ash, wondering if I am about to die. 3 years have passed since the fire. Lily is 15 now, growing into a remarkable young woman despite everything she has been through. Thomas and I are still together, still working on rebuilding the trust that was damaged. I have not spoken to Marcus since the trial, and I never will again. My mother cannot accept what he did. She visits him in prison and sends him money and tells herself that he was misunderstood, that there must be more to the story. I cannot convince her otherwise, so I have stopped trying. Danielle sold her house and moved away. I do not know where. Oliver told Lily that they went somewhere warm, somewhere far from the memories. I hope she is happy. I hope she finds peace. I hope that someday she can forgive herself for feelings that were never her fault. I think about forgiveness a lot these days. I think about what it means, and who deserves it, and whether it is even possible to forgive certain things. I have tried to forgive Marcus. I have tried to understand the desperation and the sickness that drove him to do what he did. But every time I get close to something like compassion, I remember standing on my lawn watching my home burn, and the anger comes back. Maybe forgiveness is not something you achieve once. Maybe it is something you have to keep choosing, over and over, every day. Maybe some wounds are too deep to ever fully heal, and all you can do is keep tending them, keep bandaging them, keep trying to live despite the pain. I do not know if I will ever have my best friend back. I do not know if Danielle will ever be ready to face me again. But I know that I would welcome her if she did. I know that our friendship, despite everything, was real. The memories we made were real. The love we had for each other was real. And no amount of jealousy or resentment or wrongful accusation can erase that. My brother tried to take everything from me. He tried to take my home, my safety, my sense of trust in the people closest to me. He almost succeeded, but he did not take my family. He did not take my capacity for love. He did not take my ability to rebuild, even when it seemed impossible. I am still here. I am still standing. And every day that I survive is a victory against the darkness that tried to consume me. I used to think that the worst betrayal would come from an enemy. I used to think that the people who loved you would never deliberately hurt you. I know better now. I know that the people who can hurt you most are the ones you trust most. I know that blood does not guarantee loyalty. I know that love and destruction can live side by side in the same heart. This is my confession. This is my truth. This is the story of how I lost my home, my friendship, and my faith in my own family, and how I found a way to keep living anyway. The house I live in now is not the one I designed. It is not my dream home. But it is safe and warm and filled with the people who love me. Lily's laughter echoes through the hallways. Thomas's arms wrap around me at night. We have dinner together every evening and talk about our days and make plans for the future. It is not the life I imagined. It is not the life I worked so hard to build. But it is mine, and no one can take it from me. Not anymore. Sometimes late at night, when I cannot sleep, I walk through the house and touch the walls. I remind myself that this is real, that it is solid, that it is not going to disappear. I stand at the window and look out at the darkness and think about all the things I have lost and all the things I still have. I think about Danielle, wherever she is, and I hope she is looking at the same stars. And then I go back to bed, and I close my eyes, and I try to dream of something other than fire.